What's up, guys? Today I want to talk about a couple of things, but they're all kind of connected. Last weekend I went to the Richmond race, for those of you who don't know. So I was able to do that. I had an awesome time. And I wanted to talk about a few things in relation to that and things that I've kind of learned by this point. And some of it has to do with this new aero package. Some of it has to do with the upcoming changes with qualifying and all that stuff. So I'm going to start off by just telling you that I had an awesome time at the race. Richmond is a great track to go live. You can pretty much see the entire track no matter where you're sitting and catch all the action. And it's typical short track racing. It's short track races are always good. I did notice a big difference though with this particular race. This is my second time at Richmond. I went to Richmond a few years ago with a friend of mine, and it's really night and day different. What I saw this weekend. As I said, I had an awesome time. I really did enjoy the race. The crowd was larger than I expected. I wasn't expecting as big of a turnout as there was. And part of it was the weather, right? We were expecting really bad weather. I didn't even know if they were gonna get the race in for Saturday night, and I was so happy that it turned out that we didn't really get any rain. There was a little drizzle before the race, but that was it. So I really wanted to catch the night race on Saturday night. I didn't want to have to come back on Sunday. And for several reasons, right? I night races are always better, in my opinion. Also, I did want to use Sunday, to decompress, and I had a 6-hour drive back to New York. It's a long trip, and it wears on you. And I work on Monday, so I didn't want to come in like late Sunday night and be dead tired and have to go to work the next day. So it all worked out. So I had an awesome time, and I did enjoy the race. I did notice that there are a lot of people who did not enjoy the race, and I'm talking about people who saw the race on TV. And watching the race live in person and on TV are really apples and oranges. It's two completely different experiences, right? When you watch a race on TV, you're watching the race through someone else's eyes. You don't really have control over what you're watching. You're watching a specific narrative, right? So you got the commentators who are telling the story of the race as they see it. And, all the camera angles, all the shots you see, lap after lap, it's whatever the broadcast decides to show you and talk about. So you're getting a point of view that is out of your control. When you're at a live race, you're in control over really what you want to see. So you can basically just follow any car you want and just pay attention to that and see what's happening. You'll catch a lot of things live that you don't catch on TV. You're only going to see what they want you to see or what they happen to show you. And watching the race live, first of all, the people that are complaining or were complaining, their complaint was there wasn't much passing. And I agree. Being there live, that's one thing I learned watching that race, and it really was surprising to me that how difficult it was to pass. And I was watching, I would follow specific cars and just follow them for like 20 laps just to see. And almost every car, it was almost the same. And they had such a hard time passing. And I'm not as down on that as other people are. Other people, were really bothered by it. They didn't like it. Watching the race live, I enjoyed it. And I don't mind watching a car struggle to pass somebody, for a while, right? To me, there's something within that struggle That's part of racing, and I enjoy that. And I think that people who are real hardcore fans of racing and NASCAR could see something within that that's enjoyable. I don't particularly need to see cars constantly passing other cars lap after lap. Um, so it didn't really bother me as much as it did other people. But it did reach a point where I was like, now we're going through almost an entire green flag run, and you still seeing the same two or three cars just fighting each other. And that is where it gets like, okay, now there's a problem, right? I think it's fine for a few laps and for a stretch. But at some point, mechanical grip has to take over. Tire wear has to come into effect. And then, driver skill, that's where it really kind of makes the difference. And in this race, yeah, there was passing. I'm not saying there wasn't any, but man, it was really weird to see how hard it was for people to pass. Even people with really good cars. Now, one car in particular that I really focused on throughout most of the race was Daniel Suarez. I still don't have a favorite yet, but right now I'm starting to lean towards Suarez. I think he's talented. I kind of like what I see, and he's done a decent job this year. And he had a good car in this race. Now, I don't know how it played out on television, right? I didn't see the race on TV. I saw it live. So I saw like Kyle Busch get out, and I thought it was like, oh my God, this is going to be another, Kyle Busch story. And then he got caught speeding in the pits or whatever, and he had to start in the back, and he fought his way up to the field. But once he got to like between 15th and 18th and 20th, he kind of stalled out, and then it was really hard for him to pass. So yeah, the cars towards the back that are nowhere near as good as everyone else, yeah, you could pass those guys pretty easily. But once you get to the top 20, you saw these cars just all struggling with each other. And yeah, there was passing, in between there, but it just nowhere near as much passing as you would expect to see at Richmond or short track. That's what was kind of alarming to me. It's like if I saw this at a 1.5-mile track, I could walk away and like, okay, I kind of expected that. But at Richmond, and that leads me to what I'm going to say, right? This aero package, I'm done with it. I said before that, it's fair to give it half the season, but really, what are we going to see by this point that we haven't seen? We've seen this package in effect in almost every type of racetrack you're going to see this year. And the one thing that this package was meant to do, it's not doing. Now, I'm not one of these people who had a problem with the actual on-track racing in the past couple of years. I'm not saying it was great, but I'm also not saying, I'm not one of these people that was complaining and saying how awful it was and how we need to see more passing and I don't care how it happens. I'm not like that. I was okay with the product. Not to say it didn't need improvement or it couldn't have used improvement, but for NASCAR to go this route and make this drastic of a change, I didn't see the need for it. And I certainly didn't want to see what we saw at the All-Star race last year. So we haven't really seen pack racing, thank God, but we also haven't seen passing. Not any more than we've seen in the past. And I think it's safe to say that if that's the number one thing this package was meant to do, was to create more passing, it's a huge failure. So these cars have more downforce, too much downforce, which is a big thing I noticed at Richmond, watching the race live. these cars were pretty glued to the track. It was very rare you saw a car kind of miss their mark and or wash up the track. And through an entire run, there's too much fucking downforce. And I've said this, I know you guys are tired of hearing this, but, you know, it cemented it for me. You know, what I've been saying. Watching that race live, I'm just saying, what are we going to see at this point? This package is not working. It's not doing what it was meant to do. So, in my opinion, in many ways, it's made things worse. That huge fucking spoiler in the back, it's awful. And in my opinion, chop the spoiler back down to what it was. Get rid of those fucking aero ducts. They're not doing anything. Lift the fucking car off the ground. 1 or 2 inches, that's it. And you'll get air underneath the car, which will take away downforce. And it will be these cars will be more about mechanical grip, tire wear, and driver talent. That's the way it should be. These cars are not meant to be on rails. And another thing, NASCAR, they've clamped down so much on what people can say within NASCAR that these guys are afraid to criticize NASCAR. They're not allowed to do it. And I remember it's been a while now. I was going to say not that long ago, but remember Boys Have At It, that whole Boys Have At 'em bullshit from years ago, where they said we're not going to police these guys, let them handle things. And that lasted what, a year, maybe 2? I don't remember how long it lasted. They got rid of it. So now drivers, believe me, if these drivers were free to say whatever they want, I promise you, they would all be screaming that this package is an abomination. It sucks. Okay? They're not fucking happy with this package. There's no way they could be happy. They're fucking wide open in many instances, and you can't fucking do anything. And you stall out. Right? So even towards the end of the Richmond race, it got really exciting. Clint Boyer, I thought, was going to make the pass a couple times, and he fought, and he couldn't do it. He couldn't complete the pass, and eventually Logano got in there. And then I thought he was going to make it happen, and it didn't happen. Now, again, I really enjoyed the race. And everyone at the racetrack enjoyed it too, because when you leave these races, you hear everyone talking about the race. And all I heard was positive stuff. Everybody had a great time. However, as I've said before, it's a live event. It's, I don't really remember people walking away from any race I've ever been to. I'm just talking about the ones I've attended where they weren't excited or didn't, had a bad time. On TV, it must have been different. You guys could tell me what you think, but I've seen people complaining. I've seen a couple of videos of people saying how bad the race was, especially because it's a short track and these guys couldn't pass. So I'm not complaining really about the race. I had a great time. I enjoyed it. But maybe if I saw it on TV, I would see what these other guys are seeing, and I can concur with that. So I'm not here to, say which side is right or wrong, but I'm specifically looking at NASCAR and saying, well, no matter which side of the spectrum you fall into, I think everyone can say by this point that this package is not doing what it was intended to do. And in many ways has made the racing worse. So why do we have this fucking package? And NASCAR, I really hope they have a plan B. I said this before. If they're going to ride this out for the entire season, I don't know, man. This could do more damage than good. Those are my thoughts on the race at Richmond. Had a great time, but I did observe those things in relation to the aero package. Now I'm going to go on to the next thing. The word is NASCAR is going back to single car qualifying. and I really, I'm all for that. I was not a fan of this group qualifying thing, and the reason is it just feels like a gimmick, and it feels like something that was done out of desperation. And I'm not sure. I don't know how important qualifying has been in terms of TV. And I know it's on TV and there are certain specific ratings and all that stuff. But I don't know if it was something that where they had to come in and do what they did with this group qualifying. It just feels like a gimmick. And the ratings went up. And, ratings always go up when you make a drastic change because people are curious. They want to come and see what the hell this thing is, how it's going to work. But after a while, that boost you get in ratings goes away. It's not permanent because people, once they get used to it and they see what it is, it kind of dies off. So, in my estimation, and especially from a few qualifying sessions we've seen this year, it's horrible. And you got guys just sitting on pit road. They don't want to go out because they want to draft, or they don't. Everything's this game's of one upsmanship. They're trying to outdo each other on these stupid maneuvers and tricks, and it's so gimmicky, the whole thing. Go back to single car qualifying, but I don't think this is how I would do it, and I think this is what NASCAR should consider. This whole qualifying on Friday for a race that's 2 days away, do away with that, right? Do your practice, all that on Friday. But I think that all the races should be in-pound races. You qualify before the race, the same day of the race, whether it's an hour or two before the race. Single car qualifying, you qualify in race trim, and then you impound the car and nobody can touch it. And exactly the way you qualified for the race is exactly the way you start the race. I never liked this idea. I never really fully... I'm not going to say I don't understand. I know why they did it, but I never liked it. This idea where you got a qualifying trim and a race trim. So when you qualify, you have a completely different setup. The car is set up completely different from what it's going to race as. And to me, what's the point? So, yeah, you'll get a better starting spot, but you're not starting the race in qualifying trim. It's almost like two different cars. I never liked that. I just feel like it's better if you just qualify in race trim, impound the car, and just start the race exactly as you qualified. And nobody can touch the car. And that's it. And you start the race that way, and none of this qualifying trim stuff. Teams can just focus on race trim, and you qualify the same day as the race. Whether it's a couple hours before. That's how kind of like Xfinity and stuff. And you impound the car. You can't make changes, so this way you don't have a qualifying to race trim changing. And no. The way you qualify, that's the way you're going to race. That's the way you start the race. You can't touch the car. That's what I would do. This whole thing about, having qualifying as a complete separate entity and just televising it and all that, it's to me not that important. And I don't think there's anything you can do to spice it up to the point where it's going to get huge ratings. You're going to get a momentary boost in ratings if you try new things, and that's it. And then it goes away. I don't think it's that big of a deal. I think that if you do it the same day, it's a boost, I think, for people who show up to the race on race day. When you go to these live races, right, it's not like it was maybe 10 years ago, right? I remember going all these years ago. And outside of every racetrack, you have so many things to do and see. Every driver had his own trailer for merchandise. You walked around. By the time you did a whole walkthrough, you had 2 bags full of free goodies. Things have changed. After the economy went down in 2008, everything really went down. And it affected NASCAR just like everything else. And as every year has gone on, you see less and less things at these tracks in terms of outside events. Um, they're not giving away anywhere near as many things, freebies. Uh, Even the trailers for the drivers, they're just condensed now. You got like 3 and 4 drivers that share one trailer, and they're selling merchandise. Even the merchandise isn't. It's just not a lot there, and there's just less going on outside the track. So I think if you have the qualifying before the race, people can go into the track an hour and a half early and catch qualifying, and it's all part of the same race event. And I think that would be a bonus for people that go live instead of, because I mean, if you see qualifying on Friday, the place is empty. People don't go out of their way to go watch qualifying. But if you have it as an impound before the race, you qualify, and then like an hour or an hour and a half later, you're racing the way you qualified, I think that would be the best thing. And it's not a gimmick, right? You're qualifying exactly the way the car is set up to race. And people start more or less where they should start. And you don't get people who sneak into the top 10 and get a good starting spot. But meanwhile, when they go to race trim and start the race, they just fall to the back like a rock. They don't belong in the front anyway. So it's, to me, that's what I would do. That's the change I would make. And I think it should be on the same day, hour and a half before the race. It gives people that go to the race more to see for that day, actual on-track stuff. And I think the single car qualifying is not that bad. It is what it is. You make it part of the same race day festivities, and it's all one big event. That's the way I would do it. So I want to know what you guys think about that. But I am glad they're at least going back to the single car thing. This group qualifying thing was a gimmick, and I was never really a big fan of it. It didn't bother me. I'm not going to go that far to say that I hated it. I wish, I didn't complain about it because I didn't really care that much. It didn't really matter to me, and it just felt gimmicky. So this is a good step, but I would go all the way, and I would say only impound qualifying, right before the race, and make it all part of race day. And I think that would benefit people that go to these races live, give them more to see, and those are pretty much my thoughts. So what do you guys think about what I talked about? As far as, the changes NASCAR is prone to making, I don't have a problem with NASCAR trying new things. I think a lot of people don't like change. And I think that NASCAR's willingness to make changes, I've always been okay with that. Try something, but once you see it's not working, you got to be ready to pull back and have a plan B in effect. And it doesn't feel like there's a plan B for this aero package. It just feels like they're just going to do it, and they're just going to live with it for the whole year, and maybe they're waiting on this next gen car. I don't know what their plans are, but you can't, anything you do, you always got to have a plan B and a plan C. I'm a big believer in being prepared. You can't just make changes and not have other, something, a fallback plan, to just be able to come in and say, okay, this is not really working. Let's go back, cut these spoilers down, get back to last year's package, and then make changes to that, right? I'm not saying last year's package was awesome, but, man, just fucking get rid of the downforce, man. The downforce is killing this whole thing. And these cars are not, I don't think the drivers are happy. I mean, I'm taking a guess there. I don't know what they think because they're not allowed to fucking speak their mind. So NASCAR, I think, is really hurting themselves over policing what people say. Let these guys say what they're going to say. It's not like some drivers complaining is going to drive people away. Every sport has people that complain. We all complain about officiating in football or the, bad umpire calls in baseball. Excuse me. it's a part of sports, man. Nobody's ever going to be 100% happy. Sports are not perfect. But you got to treat NASCAR as a sport. Stop trying to be so much entertainment. You know, the fact that it's a sport is entertaining enough without gimmicks. When you start doing all these gimmicks, I think it's dangerous because you don't want people to walk away looking at NASCAR the way they look at wrestling, where it's like, hey, it's just comic book entertainment. It's not a fucking sport. NASCAR has fought really long and hard to be respected as a sport. And I think it would be a shame if NASCAR starts just going overboard with gimmicks, desperately trying to get people interested in stuff that was never really that big of a deal to begin with. You know, qualifying was never something that was super popular. You know, it's just part of the NASCAR weekend. Make the changes I'm talking about, and I think that would be better. Okay? Get rid of this qualifying trim stuff. You know, qualify in race trim, and that's it. You qualify, you impound the car, or you just line it up wherever the pit stall is, and nobody touches the car. And you start the race an hour or hour and a half after whatever it is. And you race the way you just qualified. That's the way it should be done. And I think that would be for the best. So I look forward to your comments. Let me know what you think. And that's it. If there's more to talk about, I'll do a video down the road. You know, there's not going to be, I don't think there's going to be news about the next NASCAR game, NASCAR Heat 4, whatever it's going to be called. And judging by last year, we probably won't hear anything till maybe the end of May, early June, maybe. So, you know, if there's anything to talk about, I'll do a video then. So let me know what you guys think, and I'll see you guys around.